Hello, I'm live. Let me try to send out a link real quick to one of my mods. It might take me a second. How are you guys? If you're here, I appreciate you. If you're on the replay crew or if you're live, it doesn't look like we have anybody in the house quite yet. And here is my link to send out. I haven't tried this before. That's cool. I know some people do that where they like post the link. And yeah, maybe I should. I don't do a lot of things that will help the channel grow because I'm just not a techie kind of person, and that's not my focus. My focus is the self-expression. It's to connect with my community, and I'm here for it. So if you're here for it too, then thank you. I'm going to go ahead and get started with my regular stuff. I really want to talk about the situation in the Watts case today, you guys. I want to talk about how that horrible tragedy was, like, the etiology of it, like how it started. MC3PO, woohoo, you're here. Thank you, dear. And you already hit the like button and everything. How are you this morning? So I was just dying to come on because it's been really hard to get onto my live chats with my folks. Notified. Amazing. To get on to my lives with my community has been extremely challenging while having to do the treatment for the dog. And I'm so grateful to be able to get the treatment for the dog. I'm so grateful that it's going well. We just have one more week of it, and then we'll see. Fingers crossed. We might be home free. We won't know until we're there, right? That's just the way life is. So let's hit your like button. C3PO, thank you so much for being here and hitting that like button. I love to show that silly thing. Turn on your notification bell to ring, which it worked finally. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel. Oh, are you able to share the link, like, I don't know, on Facebook or other platforms, C3PO? If you know how to do that, and if you're willing, that would be amazing. Maybe like Insta or something like that. Definitely not TikTok, right? No. Blue Sky. I want to go over to Blue Sky. Okay. Make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, please consider doing so, because we know that the shadow banning is real. A week ago when I was trying to do my live, and I was on a tear, I was on a rant like never before with all this political BS, and the thing died. It went off air. And it didn't go off air until I was 37 minutes in. You were here. I remember you were here, C3PO. 37 minutes in is when it got cut off. But then when I tried to review it, it was cut off at 12 minutes, just slightly past 12 minutes in. So that whole like 20 minutes, 25 minutes is obliterated. And that's how the shadow banning works. We can pretend that it's not shadow banning. We can say it was just a glitch in the system, but the chances of that happening when I'm saying things that are extremely risky to say, I think are slim to nil. So everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a really good conversation with you, my dear. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. There's so much crap going on right now. It's really hard to keep up. I am extremely focused on the true crime community. I'm also laser focused on the politics right now. The two have been having a head-on collision, in my opinion, recently. The political atmosphere is insane. So I think it was yesterday that there were NAZI skinheads in Columbus, Ohio. That's the state that I'm in, on the freeway. wreaking havoc. And some local folks that live there got in their way and said, "What the F are you doing here?" and shut them down. So go Columbus, right? It's really crazy what is going on. This whole thing with Doge, I want to read to you the definition of Doge, because it's not what they say it is. Isn't that shocking? It's an old word. It's not a new word. And they've also been recruiting white supremacists from South Africa, like the most intense, racist, sexist, NAZI types from South Africa. Like, no thank you, Donnie and Elon. Like, step the F off, please. This is America. America. Quit trying to overthrow our democracy, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. Don't fall for it. And if we sit back and watch, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just trying to tell you, if you don't already know, you probably do, that we all need to take action. We all need to pay attention. And if taking action just means paying attention, then that's good enough. Do what you can. So let's look up Doge. I looked it up yesterday because my friend was telling me about this. True meaning. It's an old word for king. Oh, it's also the intentional misspelling of dog, right? It's an internet meme that became popular in 2013. Oh, isn't that cute? That is insane. That is like what it is flooded with. I looked it up yesterday. I know that I found the true meaning. So I'm going to look up true original meaning. Because it is an old word. And now it keeps coming up. See, this is the whole thing with propaganda, is that they control the media. That's step one. OMG, how bizarre. How absolutely bizarre. Like I said, I had pulled it up yesterday. But this is what's so frightening, is if it's this hard for me to find when I had it yesterday. So what it means, AI overview. Thank you, AI, for telling me. They still show me the picture of the cute little puppy dog. I think it's a corgi. Yeah, who doesn't love corgis? It comes from the Latin word deux, which means leader or commander. It was originally used to describe a military leader. It is a title that was used in the Republic of Venice and the Republic of Genoa. The Doge of Venice was the highest ranking official in the Republic. So who cares about your American democracy? The leader of the DOGE is the highest ranking official in the Republic. What does that tell you, you guys? That is just frightening. Serving from 697 to 1797 CE. I don't even understand what that means. I'm thinking like Caesar, like BC, except it's CE. The Doge was a symbol of Venetian independence and sovereign. Help me say this word, you guys. It's one of those tongue twisters for me. Sovereignty. I think it's sovereignty. Like a sovereign nation, right? The word Doge entered the English language through French. It is related to the English word duke and the Italian words duca and duchessa. So like a duke and a duchess, right? So it's basically, to me, it's like the dogs of war. Seriously. And here's the Merriam-Webster. This is what I was looking up yesterday. Don't look up Wikipedia, because that'll tell you about Bitcoins. Seriously. Yeah, it's all about cryptocurrency. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. How did it switch over like that? That is crazy. I'm telling you. It just keeps switching over. Okay. The internet meme. Give me a break. Chief Magistrate, Republic of Venice. All about the cryptocurrency. This is why we're so screwed, you guys. This is why we have to fight back. We have to resist. In World War II, it took 51 days for Adolf to overthrow the democracy. Tomorrow is our 21st day in to this new administration, and they are tearing it up. They're wreaking havoc. I'm sure it's a contest of some sorts to try to do it in less than 51 days, I would imagine. But whether it's a race against time or not, isn't it obvious that that's what they're trying to do? Isn't it 100% obvious? And thank goodness that there are people recognizing that, people in positions of power. But in a democracy, it's the citizens that are in the position of power. We need to be contacting our government officials if we can leave voicemails. I heard something yesterday where they said that they're usually getting like 40 voicemails in an hour or in a minute. And right now they're getting like 1,600. So exponentially more. It's so overwhelming. It's so out of control. And that's what they do. That's their MO, is flood the zone. It's a cluster. Nobody can focus on anything. And like today, we've got our freaking Super Bowl. It's the first time in history, first time in the world, it's my understanding, that a president of our country is going to be at the Super Bowl. I think it's attention seeking. I think it is a distraction. I think it is a direct intimidation towards Taylor Swift. I'm wondering if he's going to have some message flying over on an airplane banner at the same time. And I know that I'm not the only one thinking this. Of course, they've beefed up security. All of a sudden, it occurred to me last night, maybe this is why there was that, what I call a quasi-terrorist attack or a potential terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day, because they knew that the Super Bowl was going to be going on there. And I'm sure they were already planning on going. And they probably thought there was a good chance that the Kansas City Chiefs would be there, since they've been at the last 3 and they've won the last 2. And man, Donnie has, pardon my expression, he's got a hard on for Taylor, does he not? I mean, he is very sexually oriented. He loves other people's women way more than he loves his own, if he even loves his own. I'm sure she wants nothing to do with him, right? Let me see what you're saying here. And it's Helby. It's the 3 of us. Oh, there's 6 of us now. Thanks for coming in, you guys. Let me clean my glasses and see what you're trying to say. So I am wearing a very high-risk red dress today. I don't know why. Just because I try to mix it up, because I'm always wearing all black. Just, it's easiest. I don't have to worry so much. So if I have a wardrobe malfunction, please let me know in the chat, and I can just like log off and fix it. But I'm not expecting anything like that to happen, hopefully. I want to hear more about the ends in Columbus. No, you don't. You know, it's not that many of them. It's the same ones. I'll tell you a little bit. Same ones that went to Springfield, Ohio, with all the dog cat eating business. And there was probably 12, maybe. And they try to intimidate people. They try to make it look like it's this thing much bigger than it actually is. And the problem with when they did it in Springfield is Springfield's a very conservative government, full of Republicans. I know, because I live right near there. And the governor and the mayor said, freedom of speech, they're not doing anything wrong. It's like, I'm sorry, not sorry. They are doing something wrong. They're promoting violence, and that's not okay. So Columbus, being the capital of our great state, is much less like that. They're going to be, in my opinion, more democratic and just more down to earth with it. So we are a red state. Ohio is a red state. No, make no mistake. However, there's that thing called gerrymandering where they divide up all of the population to make sure that the red wins. And our electoral system, our elections are controlled by the Republicans. It's been that way for a very long time. So even if the popular vote were Democratic, the state has been red for a while and will likely continue. I was hoping that it might have flipped on this most current election, but it didn't. CE is common era. Thank you, dear. See, you're so much smarter than me. I had no idea. I've never even heard that. Sovereignty. Oh, what an easy word. I have to complicate it. I have to put more syllables in there. That's kind of my habit. They are hard at work rewriting everything. Well, so I questioned for the last 24 hours, and I put it in my video yesterday. I questioned if Elon would be following Donnie to the football game today. My guess is that he might not, that he might be hard at work. He's bragging that he's working like 20 hours a day right now. If that's true, he's on a full-blown manic episode. And I believe it. I believe that it's true. I believe he's on a full-blown manic episode, but he's trying to say it like it's a good thing. No, your body needs rest. Your brain needs rest. You can hire people to work for you, but I don't think it has anything to do with anything other than power and control and a serious mental health problem, in my opinion. And B is here. That's funny. We have Hell B and then we have B. And B's messages always self-redact. That's not me or any of my mods doing anything. And it's happy to see you here. Let's see. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's kind of afternoon here. It says 4:44 on my laptop here. And no longer acceptable to category B, C, or AD. Oh, that is so wild. I have not heard that. How long has that been? Because that's wild. That is wild. BC and AD is basically how time has been tracked in my whole existence. I understand the thought process behind that, I think, but I don't know how it slipped by me. I guess I live under a rock or something. Say not cat, say soft O. Okay. Are you like an English teacher or something? You sound like an English teacher. Okay, let's talk about NK. That's my real driving factor of why I wanted to come on live. I wanted to discuss with you further my thought process of how the plan to unalive a beautiful pregnant mother, Shanann Watts, and her beautiful, amazing little baby girls, Cece and Bella. They were 3 and 4 at the time. I mean, it's unthinkable. It makes me want to just bawl my head off. When you look at photographs of those girls, when you look at videotapes of those girls, when you really think about the reality of these little toddlers getting executed, essentially, rubbed out. Like, who the F rubs out toddlers? You know who rubs out toddlers is terrorists. So I think that NK and CW are absolutely terrorists. I don't know who did it with their bare hands. I don't believe any of the stories that CW has said. He has 3 different versions of what happened. I don't think any of them are true. However, in all of their lies, I do think some truths slip out. So let's talk about that. Kelly from What's the Obsession, she helped me get started with my YouTube. I love her work. She did a live last night that I was very late to, and I want to rewatch it. I haven't had a chance to rewatch it yet, but I will. And I'll see if any of these things sync up. I don't know if they will or not, because these are just kind of new thoughts that I've had since I think yesterday morning. I thought about how the inception of this plan occurred and when it occurred. How long was it cooking for? Who thought of it? I've never thought that CW is the one who conceived of this plan. I've always seen it as something that NK very likely conceived of. So let's just go with this theory and see what you guys think. Let me just bounce it off of you. How do you message on chat self-redact? Oh, you can just, when you make a comment, you can just delete it yourself. Like you can try it, C3PO, you can delete your own. So the only people that can delete messages are the person who made the message, the content creator, and those mods with wrenches. So, and YouTube can redact them too. And they will if it's something really vile, usually, but not always. So that's why we do it ourselves to be on the safe side. Because, it hasn't happened in a while, but trolls and bots do like to come in and mess up your chat. So where was I with the inception of the plan? I believe that NK's birthday is July 3rd, right? I believe that NK and CW went to the sand dunes to do their sand dune surfing. It was the first time Chris ever camped in his life. I mean, that's really bizarre to me, especially because he loved it so much. He was just like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. Whoever knew you could sleep outside in a tent? Like, I don't know, every single kid alive. And that's great that he discovered something new that he loved, but it's just like he's a bizarre creature. It was Paula Plunder who I think first labeled him as like the Rain Man in one of her videos. And I had kind of come to that conclusion myself. Like his brain just doesn't work the way most of our brains work. Kind of like an idiot savant, like he's smart enough to know how to fix engines. And, he trained with NASCAR. He trained at a NASCAR engine institute somewhere, I think in North Carolina. It's like big time. He was training to be a NASCAR mechanic, basically. So that's his background in training. So he knows stuff. He's smart in that sense, but he doesn't know things like that. You don't Google when to tell somebody that you love them for the first time. We know that was a Google search that he did. And it would be interesting to see the exact date of that Google search. Anyway, so on the 3rd of July, it's my understanding that Chris and NK were sleeping at her apartment as usual. They didn't go to his house, and there would be a couple of really good reasons why they would go to her place and not his, even when Shanann's out of town. And I don't think she went there that often. I know some people think that she probably hung out there a lot with him. I doubt it. I doubt it because the house was wired with Vivint, their surveillance camera system. And they were in a very densely populated subdivision where everybody knew them. They had the largest house. It's still the largest house in that development by a long shot. So they were showy people. Shanann was trying to do her business with the MLM and Facebook and all that. So it was all about the image. So they drew a lot of attention to that house. And with Shanann being out of town for 6 weeks with the girls, not only are neighbors just gonna, casually see what they see, but also her best friend, Nicole Atkinson, who some people don't realize that Nicole Atkinson was super tight with Shanann's mother. Nicole Atkinson and Shanann's mom worked together. I think when Shanann's mom came to visit for an extended period, all of the grandparents had come and stayed at the house with the Watts for extended periods. But Shanann's parents, I think, worked when they were there. I think her mom had a job or something like that. Anyway, she was tight with Nicole Atkinson. So Nicole Atkinson is a completely different character than Nicole Kessinger, for anyone who's not clear on that. And K is the mistress, and A is the one who went over to the house. She's the one who was hanging out with Shanann the night before and was trying to make sure that she got to her doctor's appointment on time, which is why she cracked the case so quickly. And all of that was not until August 13th. So let me get back on track to July 4th. So on the 4th of July, of course, that's going to be a holiday where Chris and NK don't have to go to work at Anadarko. Paid holiday. And Shanann had been trying to reach Chris. She had texted him and called him handfuls of times. And he was, having sex with his girlfriend. So he was too busy to respond. And then he finally caught a break, a window where he could respond when NK got into the shower. So I believe the story is that he went outside the apartment to call Shanann and say, oh, sorry, I fell asleep. And, I'm sure she knew something was going on because it just didn't add up. And then Chris went back into the apartment, and while NK was in the shower, said, I need to go home and take care of some stuff, essentially. And she acted like she was cool with it, and he went home to probably do some damage control with his wife. My theory is that NK had never been to his house yet on July 4th. So she surprise visited him after he basically bailed on her on the holiday. Right. And both of them tell the story a little bit differently, but the same theme that, she didn't try to go upstairs to look around. It was Dieter who dragged her upstairs, their tiny little wiener dog, made her go upstairs. She didn't want to do it, but she had to because, he went up there and she was having to chase him for some unknown reason. And then she saw the rooms, it's a super big house. I want to say it's 5,000 square feet. I've lived in a house that was 3,000 square feet, and it's much, much bigger than that. And that 3,000 square feet for our family was entirely too big. At that point, we had 3 kids. So I don't think I'd ever need a house that large unless I had 8 kids or something. But anyway, back to Shanann's custom house that they built that I believe is 5,000 square feet. I'm sure we can look on Zillow and it would tell us in a heartbeat. I'm sure it's for sale. I'm sure it's probably $1 million or so. And where was I headed with that? I need more coffee. That's what I need. I've got 2 cups of coffee. Let's go with the Pink Floyd one first and catch up with you. The youngsters were annihilated. Thank you, dear, for the word. Yeah. That's exactly what they were. Terminated, exterminated. It's just the most disgusting thing in the world. So on July 4th, when NK surprised CW, put yourself in his shoes. You're a moron. You're having an affair for the first time in your life, probably, because let's face it, the guy, to quote Shanann, he just didn't have game, right? But he was getting game. And NK thought he had game. For whatever reason, she had designs on him. He had designs on her. Disgusting, but obviously they did. And so he's having this affair with somebody who he thinks is a hot babe. but he's married with 2 kids and he's got this big house and he's house poor, and the house owns him basically. He's the house's bitch, so to speak. So he's going home to take care of the house, and the security cameras are there. And then his skank ho lover, who he's crazy about, stops by. And I'm sure it put him into a complete panic, like, where did she park? Who saw her come to the door? Who saw her from the neighborhood, like neighbors, because he knows he's got nosy Nate and other nosy neighbors. Like, neighbors are just nosy, right? And then he also knows that they have the Vivint. So there was a lot of back and forth with him and Shanann about the Vivint home surveillance system having issues. And I'm sure he was dismantling it because of that drop-in. And even though he was going to dismantle it and hope that his wife didn't see it, he probably doesn't fully know if she can go into like the files and look up the video from when NK would have been walking on their porch, right? And then we know from that interview, that 3-hour and 33-minute interview, that Kobach asked that key question: how did you access the house? How did you gain entry into the house? And NK is kind of taken off guard, and she just stops for a minute and she says, wow, that's a really good question. So she's buying time. She's trying to think, how do I answer this? How do I lie and say what I want to say without revealing too much truth? And she said that once she gained access through the front door, and once she gained access through the garage. So the time with the garage was when she was with Chris. The time that she just surprised him was probably when she came through the front door. I do think that she probably had been there more than that. I don't think she was there a lot because of the surveillance and the neighbors, but we know that the back of the house, there was no like back door on the ground level. There was the back door on the porch, on the patio, but you had to go up the stairs. And then that's going to bring you into people's views, except that there weren't many neighbors out back. Like, they hadn't developed that part of the neighborhood yet. They were still under construction. So a lot of people have always theorized that NK would have come and gone via the back, and that's probably how the victims were removed on the morning of August 13th, 2018. Chris says he took them out the front. He's definitely going out the front with stuff, but at one point there's somebody running around on the ground that could be Dieter, and a lot of people theorize that it could be one of the girls. Personally, I think it's Dieter. I don't think he would have been taking unalived bodies out the garage door with his vehicle parked in the driveway. If he was going to do that, I think he would have moved Shanann's car and backed his truck into the garage, shut the door, and loaded them. And sorry, I didn't give you a trigger warning to be speaking so callously about loading up that kind of cargo. But I don't believe that he put his family members unalived into his work truck at all, because that work truck had a lot of sensors. So it would pick up the weight. It would pick up everything. I mean, everything was recorded through their sensory system, like how many miles per hour he was going and everything. So I don't think he would have been putting them in there. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. I think that they went into NK's car or truck, and it's my understanding that she got rid of that truck, I think, by Tuesday. So this was all like Monday morning, and she got rid of her vehicle by Tuesday. I think she sold it, and I don't know, like online or CarMax or what, but That's my suspicion about all that. So back to the 4th of July, and when NK goes over to the house and Dieter drags her upstairs, and she's blown away by the size of the house. She's blown away by how perfect everything is. We know that Shanann and Chris were like OCD with their housekeeping. And when you have 2 little kids, that's just crazy. But also the kids and the mom were out of town. Usually when you have little kids, as soon as you clean something, they mess it up. So it's hard to keep anything clean for more than like 2 seconds. But I'm sure at their house it was different. I'm sure there was much more order than most people with the toddlers from all the video and photographs that I've seen in interviews. But not only was NK stunned by how perfect everything was, she was also stunned that her lover would want to leave all of this for her skanky rear end, because she knows that she's just an affair. And in the real world, in most marriages with affairs, the mistress always loses. The guy might say he's going to leave his wife. I love the terminology, we're going to get a separation. We're going to get separated. It's like nobody says we're going to get separated. People say we're going to get divorced, or people get separated, but we're going to get separated. To me, that just doesn't even ring true. So she, I think when she came by the house, was realizing that she was probably going to get ditched, that he had this whole life. He had this giant mansion of a house, what I would call like a McMansion. He had a couple of beautiful little toddler girls. He had a drop dead gorgeous wife. Like, yeah, she might have been a pain in the rear end and controlling and all that, but we know that he liked his women controlling anyway. I mean, look at his mom and look at NK and look at Shanann. Shanann was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, she dressed to the nines. She took really good care of herself. She had extremely striking features, and they took professional photographs all the time, it looked like, right? The kids and the mom and the dad, they'd all get together for these photo shoots. Like, I've never seen a family with so many photo shoots. And then they plastered their house with the photos. So NK is over there. Chris talks about that day that he had to talk her off the ledge. She talks about that day. I think that's the day where she says that she just like helped him with his macros, helped him dial it in. I could be getting my wires crossed there. But anyway, you know, they're both of them characterizing the visit, if you want to call it a visit, are quite different from each other. So he's saying that she was freaking out. She freaked out so much that she left the house and got into her car and then started texting him maniacally. And then I think that that's when she might have come back into the house, and that might be when he like talked her off the ledge, so to speak. So my belief is that that was when she kind of threatened him. Like, he was probably already feeling threatened just by her visiting. Like, that's just going to undo his whole secrecy. And that she probably did that intentionally. She probably knew that he had surveillance. He probably had told her, we can't go to my house because of the neighbors, because of the surveillance. And then when he ditched her like that on the 4th of July, she just disregarded him intentionally and basically was weaponizing her drop-in visit to leverage against him, which is very typical. I mean, mistresses, I think, will often threaten their lover, like, you better do what I want or I'm going to tell your wife, right? Or sometimes they just go and tell the wife without threatening. They can definitely use that as a weapon against their guy. It happens a lot. So my opinion is that NK put pressure on Chris to decide one way or the other. And that when she put that pressure on him, that there was only one right answer. And I don't know if that story is true about her having a sharp-edged object and putting it into somebody's back when she was a minor. That's all over the internet. A lot of you have probably heard about that story. It may or may not be true, but with things like that, I almost think it's immaterial if it's actually true or not. What's material is that we could easily picture her doing that. It's possible. And if she did do that and she was a minor, then yeah, that's going to be sealed and that's not going to be public information. So that story, according to the woman who says that she was the one with the sharp-edged object in her back from NK's hand, I think the story is that NK was babysitting for her and that she came home and found her husband and NK in a compromising position, and that's when that assault happened, and that the police were called, and that she got basically slapped on the wrist for doing it because she was a minor. We know that NK has a sordid past. We know that she has a very secretive past. And we know that her father was a little too tight with her for her being 30 and him sitting in an interview with her when her boyfriend's wife and children are missing. Like, that's just weird. It's weird that the law enforcement allowed that. It's weird that he wanted to do that, although there's only one reason in my mind why a parent would want to do that with their 30-year-old kid, is because they think that they're guilty and they're trying to protect them from themselves, right? Hey, Annabes, what's up, dear? Yes, people really had little idea how surveillance tech worked back then. Right. It was only 7 years ago, but yeah. I mean, that's a long 7 years in high-tech surveillance systems for sure. And yeah, once you have something on your surveillance camera, I know from what little I know about them that a lot of surveillance systems will keep things for at least 60 days. So you can either watch the live stream or you can easily go back and repeat it. And a lot of surveillance systems have multiple cameras. So, and then you can save things for longer than 60 days if you want. But a lot of systems erase over their own feed after like 30 days or 60 days. So Chris and Shanann, I think, were way ahead of the game with their surveillance system. And maybe that was because she had worked at that Dirty South place in North Carolina where she made so much money, and there's allegations that she was sleeping with the boss, which if she was, they're both consenting adults. There's allegations that she might have embezzled money, and it's always been my understanding that she was very good at her job and was paid very well. And then if she's sleeping with the boss, she'd be getting paid even more better. She wouldn't have to embezzle anything, but that they were maybe not the most reputable businessmen. And that when she left the business, she was on bad terms. She had a lot of money. She built that nice house for herself in North Carolina. She'd been previously married to an attorney. I want to say his name might be Peter King, but don't quote me on that. Pretty sure the last name is King. Anyway, in her account, she says that she supported him through law school, and then he basically ditched her after law school, which is kind of typical with doctors usually do that to the women that support them through medical school. And then she had her medical complications, and then she worked at Dirty South. She built that big house, and then she met Chris. So when Chris met her, she had this gorgeous castle of a house all to herself. She was ill. She didn't think she could ever have children because of her lupus. And she was devastated because she'd been married and this guy kicked her to the curb. So she was kind of easy prey for a scumbag like Chris, who didn't have much going for him, in my opinion. They met on Facebook. They went out on a date. he let her fall asleep with her head on his lap when he had to pee for 3 hours because he's got no backbone and can't just say, I got to go pee. Excuse me for a minute. And that sealed the deal for her. She thought, this is my knight in shining armor who's going to take care of me. And, the rest is history, as they say. So when they sold that house, they had all that money when they moved out to Colorado. And some people think that she was running from the people that she did business with at Dirty South. And she might have. And that might be why they had the surveillance system, not just because a lot of people have surveillance systems, but she might have felt under threat. It's entirely plausible. Anyway, they had a extensive surveillance system. My point is that would have made a man who's having an affair extremely nervous when his little skanko drops by. And being that nervous, he probably felt like his life was under threat. Like he could lose his house, he could lose his wife, he could lose his children, he could lose half of his paycheck for the rest of his life because, that's how those things go with alimony and child support. And if you're the one cheating, depending on what state you're in, if you're the one cheating, a lot of times you lose everything. You lose your shirt, so to speak. So he could either lose everything and run off into the sunset with the skanko, or something could happen to them and he could run off with his little skanko, or he could kick his skanko to the curb and try to make things work with his wife. And the skanko would undoubtedly try to tear him apart and the family. So my point is that he really didn't have much choice, that she really had him cornered. She had him in checkmate. And that when he was melting down and on that day, on July 4th, and again, this is all my fantasy and speculation, that when they were sitting down and he was talking her off the ledge, that in my opinion, that might be when she proposed the idea that something could happen to his wife and kids, or something could just happen to his wife. It might have started with that. And that that might have been the beginning of something that, honestly, I would think a lot of people having affairs might entertain those types of ideas and conversations, but not that many would follow through with it, whether they're the partner in the marriage or the fifth wheel, so to speak. Not that many people would follow through with it, but things like that can snowball, and you can get what they call the mob mentality, and it just takes on a life of its own, right? I mean, Chris has kind of talked about it like that. Like he wasn't even a participant. Like he was just being used by some evil entities that were channeling their evil doings through his vehicle of a human form. I mean, you've heard him say stuff like that, haven't you? If you've paid attention to the case. My daughter is going through what Shanann did. Oh, Anna Bees, I was going to ask you how your daughter is, my dear. That's crazy, honey. I'm so sorry. That must break your heart. My daughter tried to self-delete herself with sharp object. You're killing me. I mean, I'm so glad you're sharing this, but my goodness, it's really hitting me hard. Wow. Because you're one of the few people in my little community that I really feel like I have a connection with you, Anna Bees. I'm so sorry. Let me drink some coffee and read the rest of what you're writing here. My eyes are all teared up. For you and her, I'm so glad that it didn't work, the self-deleting with the sharp object. She is in a hallway in the ER on a gurney. They're looking for placement. Are you in the ER with her? And my daughter and Shanann were dealing with a terrible disease, with terrible diseases. Also, Shanann had lupus and my daughter has MS. Yeah, I know a little bit about both of them. And yeah, I know that there's some similarities and they're mysterious and it's mostly women. And, it's basically like your immunity system is very run down, kind of like chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Like those are all kind of in the same family in my assessment. Fred Field says Ola was watching Shanann's 5-hour marathon. Shanda's 5-hour marathon. That's cute that I thought it said Shanann. So she did a 5-hour marathon last night. She did an 8.5-hour marathon the night before. She is on a tear. I think what she's doing is she's gathering all this information to feed into Grok. I don't know much about all this stuff, the AI. And then she's going to try to get AI to tell her the story of what happened to Kylie. And that's a wild idea. I know Shanann's really good with that kind of thing. Annabee says, me too, Jazz. Oh, dear. Sorry to read this, Annabees, Fred says. Oh, well, I'm so glad you're here. Let us try to help you. Are you in the ER with her right now? I'm just so glad that she's okay. And terrible that she's being cheated on. Devastating that she's self-injurious. You know, I mean, self-deletion is usually when you psychologically you're aiming all of your anger inward instead of outward. And it's almost better to aim it outward in a situation like that. I mean, injuring yourself, and I'm just so glad it didn't work. No, I'm not there. We can only visit 8 to 10 p.m. I was there last night. Thank you, Jazz and Fred. I'm glad she's okay. Yeah. So sad. And what a dirtbag, your son-in-law. I mean, this has got to be hard on you too. I mean, I think most people have probably been cheated on at some point in their life. Maybe not everybody. I know I was cheated on with at least one boyfriend when I was young, and it's not a good feeling. And I'll be completely frank with you. I thought about taking the competition out. It crossed my mind. I entertained the idea, and I thought, well, that probably wouldn't win him back. If he likes her, he's just going to be sad that she's deleted. And then if he figured out that I did it, he'd be really mad at me. I know I'm being a little too frank, right? But I mean, I was a teenager at the time, or close to it. I was young. But yeah, people do crazy stuff like that, especially immature people do crazy stuff like that. And even though Chris and NK were 30, I think he was maybe 31 or 32. I think NK was 30. I think Shanann was 33 at the time. NK was extremely immature, as was Chris. I mean, Chris wasn't much of an adult in my estimation. I mean, he looked like one. He was the same age as one. He had kids. He owned a home. He had a steady job. Like, those are all adult things. But I mean, what adult has an affair the minute their spouse leaves town? I'm sure too many, but not that many. Like, percentage wise, it's probably really low, like 1%. Because having an affair, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're hurting yourself, as well as just making your life really complicated. So most of us are too smart to do that to ourselves and the people that we care about, right? Anna B says, don't worry, I won't. I know that karma will deal with him. I don't have to do anything. Yeah, good. And I hope that the worst thing is when somebody takes someone back in a situation like that. I had a friend whose husband had been cheating on her, and then they got into a physical altercation. She got arrested for attacking him, and she took him back. And then eventually down the road, they did get a divorce because he decided he wanted a divorce. But when she took him back, I was just like, don't do it, man. Why would you put yourself through that? It broke my heart. I was, of course, wanting to support her doing anything she wanted to do and felt the need to do. But I was very frank and upfront with my opinion that was like a foolish mistake. And that probably cost us our friendship. Like, we didn't really interact much after that because she was back together with him. And I mean, we were still friendly, but I just was very, I want to say, disillusioned with who I thought she was, because I thought she had a self-esteem. I thought that she would have taken better care of herself, but obviously there's a lot of reasons for taking people back, and I don't believe that you should never take someone back in a situation like that. Never say never. I mean, every situation is different, but if someone's going to do that to you, you just don't need them. And if that's how you found your man, like NK finding Chris like that, if he's going to do that to Shanann, he's going to do that to NK too, right? And that's what people really don't understand is if that's how you found your partner, it's just a matter of time until you're next. And Anna B says, yes, that is my fear. I'm going to do everything in my power to not let her take him back. Obviously, I will always be there for her no matter what. Oh man, I hope she can get some good counseling. I mean, I don't know if there's domestic violence on either side, but that's at least psychological abuse, which is just as bad, if not worse, than physical abuse. And it's really hard for people to break that cycle. It's really hard for people to free themselves from that prison. So much wrapped up in it. So thanks for sharing, Anna Bees. And yeah, that really hits it home with this whole theory that I'm sharing about how the plan to end the lives of the Watts family occurred. And, I've studied the case a lot. I could be incorrect about all of this, but for anybody who's studied the case, if you want to entertain these ideas and see if they plug in. So I had offered to Kelly last night to come up on our panel and share some of this and try to have a really good discussion. And she was at the end of the 2 hours, and I don't know if she didn't see my comment or if she just was needing to do other things like feed her bunnies and rest. but I haven't talked to her yet since then, and so probably she'll be doing another live soon, and I'll try to catch up on the replay crew from hers last night and see if she wants me to talk about these ideas on her channel with her. I, of course, am happy to, but I don't want to do that if she doesn't want me to, because she has her own ideas about how things went down. But, that's her channel, is What's the Obsession. And she does like to have thought-provoking discussions and allow people to share their ideas that can be kind of out there, in my opinion, sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back on track. We're probably already at an hour. Let's get back on track with getting a rudder in the conversation. I mean, I hate domestic violence. I hate the hate. I hate the lack of justice. I mean, that's why I started my channel. And, I'm married to a first responder who is law enforcement, as well as he volunteers with the local rescue squad. Let's see, he's a firefighter and a medic tech. And for all of those jobs, but especially law enforcement, domestic violence is by far and away the most dangerous type of call to take. So it's very dangerous to get involved in anybody's domestic violence situation. It's what I've wondered was going on in that Kentucky Sheriff Mickey Steins's life. The guy who shot his friend Kevin Mullins, the judge. And him and his wife were separated. And I wonder if there wasn't domestic violence. I have learned a little bit more about that case, that there was a lot of awful sexual stuff going on with his officers and the women in the county who had trouble with the law and were on probation, on parole, had their ankle bracelets, were getting sexually exploited by his underlings, and he was well aware of it. And, when people are involved in stuff like that, even just like a supervisor knowing that his underlings are doing that, like their hands are never clean. And the type of person who's going to allow that is going to be a misogynistic freak that probably would be a good candidate for DV. But what I was saying about domestic violence is so sad for the victims. It's so sad for the children that are victims. It's so sad for law enforcement that is just trying to do their job and then becoming unalived. It's very, very tragic. And in my opinion, getting back to the politics of where our country is right now with people like Elon Musk and that Tate dude and Jeffrey Epstein and P. Diddy and Weinstein, all of them, just put them in one big ball of worms, as Elon Musk would say, and throw the whole freaking ball out because it's disgusting. But all of those guys are misogynistic AF. They don't care about other people, especially females. And it's a very dangerous mentality. It's evil. It's dark. In my opinion, that's exactly where the political administration is headed right now. It's barreling out of control, like a freight train out of control, downhill, like Handmaid's Tale. I mean, we keep getting back to that story, right? The only women that get promoted in this political framework, this political climate, are pretty women, like Alibaba, Melania, Ivanka, the Barbie doll spokesperson, Katrina Levitt. What is her name with the K? Katrina with a K. Oh my goodness, she's the worst. These women aren't hired for their brains, and neither are the men. I mean, look at Hegseth and Matt Gaetz. I mean, but they're hired because they're misogynistic. They're hired because they will promote this world of just really dark, oppressive, big balls type of mentality, right? To quote the name of one of those muskers, one of those muskrats. We got to call them muskrats, right? So Musk is from South Africa. He's part of apartheid. That's where some of the worst racism lives. But those people are also very sexist. It's very much a man's world. Like things like the handle big balls will tell you, I'd like to call him like giant tool or tiny junk. I think those were the two that I threw into the mix yesterday. These people are disgusting. Like they have issues, man. Like talk about issues with mom, probably issues with dad too. But, people that are misogynistic really have issues with their mothers. And for anybody who's in a relationship, a woman who's in a relationship with a man, the last person you want to be in a relationship with is somebody with mommy issues. Like they are just such pains in the rear end. We all know this, right? That's common knowledge. Dudes with mommy issues, no, thank you. Relationships are hard even when people are well balanced and trying their hardest and treating you well. Relationships are just a challenge. And back to politics, right? I mean, it quickly becomes sexual politics. I studied feminism in my undergraduate degree at Miami University, of all places, which is very much a Stepford Wives, Handmaid's Tale kind of university. Like so many other universities, they were all invented for men only. and women weren't even allowed to go to school at universities, you guys. And so Miami University had a really good feminism department, and there was this professor, I forget her last name, I could look it up. Her first name was Linda. She was like 5 feet tall. She was white, but she had like a little blonde fro. She was hilarious and adorable. She was very outspoken, and I was lucky enough to study with her. And then years later, I saw her on the Oprah Winfrey show. But she really taught me that your relationship with your significant other is a very politically charged type of relationship if it's unhealthy. Let me see if I can find the famous feminism professor. Feminist educator, Miami University. She died a long time ago, though, so that might be hard to find. She was very well published, and like I said, she was on Oprah. Sorry, it takes me so long. Yeah, I'll never find it this way. I don't think. But I'll find it and then I'll share it with you guys. Maybe if I put on Oprah. I'm sure Oprah had other feminists on her show. Anyway. No, that's not going to help me. So violence against women, that I think is a lot of what we're looking at with this apartheid type of administration. And one of the first things they want to do is take away the rights of women and anybody who's not a white male. And as you guys know, I've had a lot of trouble with getting YouTube to pay me. And one of their last holdouts to not pay me is that my legal name, my married name, is different than what's on my Social Security card. So I need to go back to Social Security and change my name with them legally in order to get paid what little bit of money YouTube owes me. It's not that much. And I'll do that. But what that gives me some insight into is that for all of us females whose names often change with marriage and divorce, our last names change, that if your name is different than it is on your birth certificate, you might have a lot of trouble with your bank accounts and with traveling. I mean, I think it's going to be a very severe situation very quickly. So the whole reason I'm bringing this up is just for all of us to make sure that our legal names are as legal as they can be. And it's so sad that it's a problem only for women, basically. Like, men don't change their names. Women change their names typically. So I think everybody is going to need to have all of the papers the way you needed to have papers back in World War II if you were traveling and you were pulled over, or even if you were traveling on foot. If you were questioned, you had to show your papers. You had to show where you were a resident, where you were a citizen. And if you didn't have that, they could take you prisoner. So like right now with these prisoners that are still being held captive, the ones that were abducted from that concert like a year and a half ago, those people are still being held captive. They were abducted from that concert a year and a half ago. Those are the hostages that are being discussed so often, and that they're still trying to free. There were thousands of people that went to that outdoor concert. I'm trying to remember where it was, in the Middle East, Israel, and then I can only imagine what they've been subjected to this entire time. It's so effing crazy for us Americans to try to wrap our minds around that. I mean, I just went to that Josh Johnson comedy event last week. That was kind of a small venue. I went to see AJR in Cincinnati at a very large venue this last summer. It was indoors, 20,000 people. And imagine getting raided by an army like that, and then having a bunch of people taken prisoner, and people were just slaughtered. So it ties right into the current politics of our country, with our crazy leader making these offhanded remarks about taking the Gaza Strip and turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Like, that is crazy talk. That is intentional to provoke people, to upset, I think, Americans, so that they'll be distracted with their anger about that. And then at the same time, Elon Musk is in these offices plundering all of our Social Security information, the stuff that I'm talking about, making sure that it's all accurate, making sure that you have your documentation. They're taking that documentation. They've already taken it. So a judge in the last 24 or 48 hours has ordered that they destroy all the information that they have, and that they stop doing it, and that they give back the stuff that they stole. Like, as if they're going to follow those judges' orders, right? Hello, big balls and all your freaking muskrats. What in the F are they doing, you guys? You could say that I'm just a crazy conspiracy theory wingnut, but this is exactly what's going on, in my opinion. And I'm not saying this to try to be alarming or upset anybody. I'm saying it because I think it's true, and I don't think a lot of us want to think about it or see it. But if we are in disbelief and we just take a wait and see attitude, it'll be too late. Our democracy will be destroyed. Oh, Fred, I love the way you always get back to Scammy and Kylie. And like Kelly too, yes, psychological abuse only. I like Kelly too. I was thinking it said Kylie, but yeah, Kelly, Watts the Obsession, she's great. I love the amount of work that she's put into that case. I really think that she has been able to shine so much light on the corruption with Rourke, the corruption with NK. Kelly's not a lawyer, but she's from a family of lawyers, and she thinks like a lawyer. And she did go to law school for a while. She decided that that wasn't her thing. She's like a behavioral therapist in a school. She's a great person, in my estimation, and a really good content creator. She's hardcore, man. Anna B says they really are jazz, and that was a few minutes ago, 12 minutes to be exact, so I don't know what that was. Show Sammy in that group too. Show Scammy in that group. Oh, like the group of the Stepford Wives? Ew. Yeah, because I think that the whole thing with Kylie Rodney, just the fact that her mom had Handmaid's Tale references on her Facebook profile is very suspicious to me about what was going on there in Truckee and what was going on there with Kylie. I still think that Kylie was getting abused, and that's why her grandmother worked for Child Protective Services. For sure, Fred Annabee said, include my SIL sister-in-law and NK and Sammy in that slimy snake group. Oh, the ball of worms. It was just so gross the way Elon was talking about this ball of worms. Like, his metaphor was like when you have a worm with an apple in it, you have to take the worm out. But if your apple is just full of worms, then just throw the whole apple out. But in this case, there's no apple. It's just a ball of worms. And the funniest thing about it is that he's got a severe speech impediment where he can't say that word. He sounds like a 4-year-old trying to say that word. And that's something that I would never want to make fun of somebody for. And in fact, a couple of my own children have speech impediments. And I think it's really cute too. Like it's kind of like your signature. Even when you have speech therapy and you get trained out of it, it's still just the way you talk. And everybody talks differently. And if Elon was a nice person, it would be kind of cute the way he says worms. But he's a disgusting ball of worms. And, you know, he's even worse than a ball of worms. Like, he's just a freaking ball of snakes. Feed them to the sharks, right? Let's see. Do you follow her on Insta or what? Annabees is asking Fred. He says, yes, on Insta. I try to comment on there about Kylie every 3 to 5 weeks to remind her about her bestie, LOL. Fred is so committed. And do you do it under your Fred Field name? It was on a kibbutz. My daughter-in-law is from Mexico. She's a rapist and a criminal. LOL. No, she isn't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Because the president says that everybody from Mexico is a rapist and a criminal. And like, who's the rapist and who's the criminals? I mean, all of these muskrats are committing crimes. Donnie is a convicted criminal. All of these insurrectionists are criminals, and they're violent, and he's released them all from any consequences of their actions. And then he's trying to prosecute the people who legally prosecuted them for their crimes. Can he just like go back under the rock from whence he came already? He's so freaking gross. Actually, all of them, like, why don't they just move to Mars? You know, they want to occupy Mars. I could go off on a crazy conspiracy theory with that, with the Guantanamo Bay. It's like they want to put their criminals, the people that they want to call criminals, into Guantanamo Bay. And then what are they going to do? Send them to Mars? I mean, I don't think anybody would survive on Mars. But if you want to get rid of people, it's a good place to send them. Like, yeah, you want to move to Mars? Give me all your money and I'll set you up and get you moved there. I almost wonder if that's part of their shtick and what they're doing. But yeah, I want to reiterate how much I love this content creator that I've told you guys about, Chris Norland, the guy who is, I think he's American and South Korean. He lives in South Korea currently. He went to school with Musk at the University of Pennsylvania. They're both extremely well educated, extremely bright. He's a professor and a content creator and does a bunch of other things professionally too. And he's very humble and he just talks very frank about the things that he knows about. So his content has just been opening my eyes to so much. Chris Norland. I put a link to one of his latest videos in my description from yesterday's video, and I'll do that again today. And before I came on, I was watching Blunt Politics with Boston Bryan, who you guys know is another content creator that I really appreciate. It was so hard to turn off his live stream to come on to my own, but I really wanted to talk about this crap with NK, and I just wanted to connect with you guys. So here we are. I think we'll start to wrap up because it's already an hour and 20 minutes. It's almost 4 o'clock. Let's see. But back to Annabees, the daughter-in-law from Mexico, not really a criminal, just kidding. She's a very good person. She is here legally and married to my son since 2007. She is now carrying copies of all of her papers with her. The problem for other people, not her so much, but is if someone suspects you of being an illegal alien, you can be put into a detention. That's how they're phrasing it. Like, they're not even being shy about that. They're not even trying to hide that. If someone suspects that you might be an illegal alien, they will detain you. It's crazy. And yeah, I think everybody needs to have all their papers, but especially those of us that are not white men. Um, did Kylie's mom delete her Handmaid's Tale references once Kylie went missing? Good point, C3PO. She changed her profile picture immediately. I don't think she deleted all of her Handmaid's Tale references, but I might be wrong. But so she basically did delete one of them just by changing her profile picture. And Fred Fields says, yes, I'm Fearless Fred on there. LOL. Oh, cute. Super cute. I like that. Fearless Fred. That's great. It's great that you keep on her. So, she's one of those people like NK and like Amanda Knox and Caitlin Armstrong, and probably, in my opinion, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen. These beautiful women who might be unalivers. All of those that I just mentioned, I believe, are unalivers. Meredith Kircher's unaliver. Mo Wilson's unaliver. Kylie Rodney's unaliver. Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, CC Watts, and Nico Watts unaliver. And Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee G. Gonsalves, am I saying it right? And Ethan Chapin. They could have been unalived by the two roommates that say that they slept through the whole thing. A lot of these unalivers say they were sleeping. Chris Watts tries to say Shanann was sleeping when he left. Or no, she was awake. They were fighting, but then she fell back asleep. When he left, she was in bed, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, the I was asleep is sort of like the I don't remember. So I think we're getting closer to a potential trial with Koberger's case with the Idaho 4. And I think he, as a defendant, is a patsy. I think that the two roommates are much guiltier than any of us have ever really wanted to think that they are. Just because they're pretty little young things doesn't make them exempt from that possibility. And at the very least, they were co-conspirators. They were home and they weren't touched. They weren't scraped. Like, come on. With their initial story of the, I slept through it. It was at the other end of the house. I didn't hear anything. Frozen shock phase. With all of that, that's all viable, right? That's all potentially plausible. But as the story continues over the 2.5 years with all the information that should be coming out to support that idea, it's like the total opposite has occurred. Like, all of the information that's come out over the last 2.5 years has proven, in my opinion, that that's a crock of crap. So just saying. Dylan. Yeah, did I say Dylan? Did I call her a different name? Dylan Mortensen. Trying to mention so many names all at once is very, very challenging. And yeah, I think I did. You're just correcting yourself there. But yeah, it's so easy for me to cross my wires. I try really hard not to, which is why I like doing this, because it's kind of like doing crossword puzzles or playing Sudoku. Like, it helps keep me sharp because, I've got a lot going on with my life, and I like to stay focused. The more focused I am, the happier I am. If I'm not focused, I can easily fall into despair. So, yeah, that's why I do it. And it helps me feel like I'm taking some kind of action, like just spreading these ideas that I think they're accurate ideas. If I didn't think they were accurate, I'd let you know. And they might not be accurate. I'm not any kind of know-it-all. Um, I think that when I have cleared my mind, when you got like the tabula rasa, the blank slate, like when you're meditating, for me, it's like swimming, gardening, yoga. When I'm doing those things, sometimes it's even just cleaning house or taking a walk, when you really unwind, I think is sometimes when you have your clearest thought. I was going to say clairvoyant. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, I'll have really interesting dreams about these types of things that I've never thought of before. And then I'm like, I wonder. But for me, it happens more when I'm swimming. This is why I used to like to swim a lot, but now I just do my yoga a lot. And the gardening, oh my goodness, I'd have so many great ideas while I was gardening, but 'tis not the season. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I think I've covered all the material that I had written down here. Where I started this stream with you guys, that the New Orleans attack on New Year's Eve makes more sense in my view, in my opinion, with the fact that the Super Bowl is going on there today. And I just hope that there's no violence at the Super Bowl. I hope that there's no plundering of all of our vital American information while the focus is at the Super Bowl, with the president there. Just the game takes a lot of people's attention. And for Donnie to think he needs to be there, it just makes me think that A, he's got a plan, right? Some evil plan. And B, he just has to be the center of attention. With everybody's attention on the Super Bowl and not him, he can't take it. So he's just going to go right into the middle of the field, so to speak, maybe literally. But the problem with going to a big event like that is safety. And it puts everybody at risk that's there. There could be a terrible plan. And I hope there's not. I know they have a ton of security, but why do that to yourself? Why do that to your country? Why do that to the football teams and the football fans? Why do that to all the security detail? Like, just let people chill and enjoy a freaking game for a second, Donnie. My goodness. So let's finish up here. I know that it's a possibility, even for me, whose family and was in the Arizona territory before Arizona was a state. Man, it's so beautiful there. Just love, like, the Navajo Nation. Isn't that in Arizona? I know it's around there. I believe that Bethany and the other one, who I remember her name right now, may be the unalivers. Anna Bees, it really hadn't occurred to me until a couple of days ago that I think so too. I freaking think so too. I've never been unsuspicious of Jack D. Never. I still think he was involved. I also think that the fraternity is involved. I also am very suspicious of the law enforcement and of the president of the university. I think they're all involved to some extent. The people who actually did it with their bare hands are probably the kids, probably the fraternity brothers, sorority chicks. Like, what was going on at that frat party? And then somebody put a freaking brain on a damn dumpster. And we all forget. We're all so distracted with all the flooding of so much fact and fiction. It's impossible to see straight. And, the flooding of the zone, like, that's a football term. That's like what you do to create a strategy to make your play, make your touchdown, right? No, I couldn't remember her name. No, I couldn't remember her name. Right. I know. But you made me think that maybe I said the wrong one, because that does happen. Is it Dylan that is from Reno? It's Bethany who's from Reno. Bethany's dad is a dentist from Reno. Dylan was from Boise. So her thug boyfriend, Quinn, from Boise. It's 5 hours away. And her mother is a administrator for the university at the Boise location. I think her mother used to be a professor too, at the University of Idaho. That case was so confusing for me. Kylie was confusing enough. Yes, but it's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of like the more complicated, the more intriguing. But I do think that in this like handmaid's wives kind of construct, that there could be a connection. For all we know, crazy conspiracy theory is that all these beautiful young women are not deceased, that they're all being trafficked and made to reproduce with the muskrats. Now, I'm not saying that I think that's true, but it's a possibility. It's a distinct possibility that that was not Kylie's remains. I don't think that there's much evidence that that could have been the situation in Idaho, but I think that that idea has been thrown out there by others before, that maybe that was staged. I mean, there was just way too much of the red stuff, for one thing. I mean, the whole thing was staged. It was cleaned up. There was one latent shoe print. So who cleaned it up? Was that even the crime scene? Was the crime scene over at the frat house? And then they moved the two from the frat party. That we know Bethany was there. We know that Ethan was there. We know that Xana was there. Was Dylan there? Dylan was at a sorority party with Kaylee the night before. She had to entice Kaylee to come back to go to this stupid party. Was this like some big plan? I don't know. Kaylee was ditching the skanky old boyfriend. I mean, sorry, not sorry. I mean, she just seems so out of Jack D's league. And then they had that little dog Murphy together. So she's leaving Jack. She's taking Murphy. She's moving out of the country. But before she moves out of the country, she's going to go travel Europe. And she's taking the dog, even though she's not going to be taking that dog to Europe. But Jack can't have the dog. She's taking it. And then she goes and buys that nice truck. And then she comes back to visit for a weekend. And boom, it's over. So yeah, to answer your question, Dylan Mortensen might be related to the prosecuting attorney for Kootenai County. I think that guy's last name is Mortensen. And I've tried to research it to see if there's any connection, and I haven't been able to determine that. I do think that it's a pretty common last name there, especially. I think it's like a common last name in the Mormon religion. But her mother, Dylan's mother, is an administrator for the university. And then Bethany's dad, not only is he a dentist in Reno, but allegedly she went to Truckee High School for a year or something, right? Right? Dang. Frank, no, I think Bethany was. Yeah, Annabees is accurate. I hope so too. I have been praying about it. Exactly, Jazz. You know, I live in Kansas City. I'm so mad. Oh, I forgot you lived in Kansas City, Annabees. Thank you for reminding me. It's hard for me to keep track of all this information in my little pea brain. Well, I hope your team wins. Yeah. But how weird is it that the Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl, and that Philly had that train on fire a few days ago? They had that plane going to Mexico that fell out of the sky a week and 2 days ago. These things can't be coincidences. So then we have had another plane fall out of the sky up in Alaska with the 10 people on it. Why do these planes keep falling out of the sky? Like, sure, those things can happen, and things often happen in threes, but how many planes fell out of the sky with the last political administration over the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024? Anybody know? I don't, but I'm going to look it up. I keep thinking about it. Navajo and Apache, Piedmont, and more. And NGB off to watch Mark's Second Lives. Wait, Mark, he's back on? Fred? That'd be awesome. I've missed him. I'll check him out. I'll see if that's the Mark you're talking about. That's totally awesome. I'd love to catch up with him. I hope his doggy's okay. Ripley. I hope Ripley's okay. I know Ripley's very old. Um, if that is the Mark that you're talking about. Is it all too coincidental and weird? Right. And there's no such thing as coincidence, period, according to Carl Jung. I was going to say Sigmund Freud, but for people that don't know who Carl Jung is, he was very tight with Sigmund Freud. They were like besties and peers in psychology. They were extremely tight, and then they had a massive falling out. Um, Personally, I think they might have been more than just friends, maybe friends with benefits or something like that. But anyway, that's another live stream. That's another conversation. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for being here with me, you guys. And yeah, if that's Mark, let's check out his live stream. And I hope you guys all have a lovely rest of your day. I hope whatever team you want to win wins. And I hope that nobody gets hurt anywhere, especially in New Orleans with the ball game there. So love and light. We'll see how many times I might be able to come on for my live streams this week. But after next weekend, I should be able to get back into a pretty good routine. Next weekend is one of my yoga marathon weekends. So probably not going to be doing much with the live streaming over next weekend, but maybe I'll get a couple in this week, and then hopefully next week can get back on my game. So love and light. Thanks again. You guys are the bomb. See you soon. Thanks for watching.